Hi, this is Dr. C, and this is a short lecture on JavaScript events. So we're here to talk about events and how they happen in JavaScript. Let's consider events just in general. So events refer to a situation where you have cause and effect. And this is what is going to make your program interactive, so the user can interact with it and pick things and tell it to go certain ways. Otherwise, your program would be very two-dimensional and boring. So what happens with events is that you do something and a predetermined response happens. Here's a simple example. You push the doorbell. That's an event. And that causes a response, and the response is a bell rings in the house, and that's been pre-programmed into the circuitry of the doorbell. Okay, so it's not a surprise response. So let's look at JavaScript and programming and see how events fit in there. JavaScript is event-driven, but many other programming languages are also event-driven. Anything that you're interacting with, where you're clicking on buttons or something, has events in it. Word has events in it, for example. But let's think of a mobile app, since that's what we're working with. And events can be something like the user taps a button on the mobile screen, or the user swipes left on the screen. Those would be events. And the response is, well, maybe the response to the button tap is there's a pop-up that says thank you that appears on the screen. Or maybe the left swipe causes the next screen to appear, and maybe the next screen is a checkout or something. So the idea here is what the program does depends on what the user does. Okay, so the user's sort of driving it through these events. And again, that's what makes things fun. There are 4 elements to event-driven programs. And let's bring them all in here. There we go. The first one is controls. So you have to have a control for the user to interact with, a button, a drop-down, a menu, something that the user can interact with and get input into your program. And then the event loop and the trigger function are both pre-written, pre-built-in code in the language, in our case JavaScript. And so when you create an event for a control, like a button, let's just talk about buttons. When you create an event for that particular button, automatically the system adds an event loop for this event and a trigger function for this event for that particular button. And the event loop is, we call them listeners, and it basically runs in the background in a loop, and it's listening for when the user clicks on that button. And when the user clicks on that button, the event loop tells the trigger function, hey, somebody clicked on that button. And the trigger function is just hanging around, says, okay, I know when that happens, I'm supposed to call a particular event handler function. And that's the fourth element, the event handler. The event handler is the code you wrote. It's the response. So that's what I want to happen when the user clicks that button. And in this case, maybe I want a pop-up to show up. Okay, so those are the 4 pieces, and you're interacting, you're creating the control and the event handler, and event loop and trigger function are being automatically generated behind the scenes in your program by JavaScript. Now, the most common JavaScript events, just to point out what they are on-click, because you can think there's a lot of things you click as a user, buttons, and that would be on-click translates in mobile to on-touch. Okay, on-click, you can click on drop-downs, you can click on lists, you can click on images. There's a lot of things to click on. So a lot of different controls have an on-click event for them. Onload is one that in App Studio, the form, you can have a project with multiple forms in it. Each form is a screen in a mobile app. And you can use the particular form's onload event. So when that form is being loaded into the browser, you can write an event handler that says set a variable to this value and maybe make the background of the form purple and different things like that. And then there's the on-change event, and that applies to things like checkboxes and radio buttons. So if you check the checkbox, that means the status of that checkbox has changed from unchecked to checked. And that's an event. You can write code to it, what to happen when the user checks that. Okay? So with that idea, in the next video, we'll take a look at an example. And that's all I have. Thanks for watching.